Okay, here we go. Division of whole numbers. Of the four operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, probably if you had trouble with one of them, division is the one that's a little bit more involved than any of them. So it takes time to get good at division, but you could do it. It just takes time. Division defines the operation of finding how many groups of a certain number, the divisor, are contained in another number or amount, the dividend. The answer is the quotient. So we're finding how many groups of 3 are there, or how many groups of 12 are there. When we write a division problem, we always need to know the terminology. You always need to know terminology because if you don't know, then when your instructor is talking about uh, directions or he's talking about terms, if you don't know the terms, you're going to get lost. So the number in front of the division box here is the divisor, which is 3. So this number is a divisor. The number inside the division box is a dividend. That 12 is a dividend. And our answer written above is called the quotient. Quotient. Okay. This division problem, 3 into 12 goes 4 times. That's the same way, it means the same as writing 12 divided by 3. With the 12 first, the 3 second. So these are two equivalent forms. And notice that if you multiply these last two numbers, 3 and 4, you get our first number. And that's called the related multiplication statement. 3 times 4 is 12. So the last two numbers here, the divisor and the quotient, have to multiply to get the dividend. Phrases for division? Well, quotient is one, divided by, divided into, ratio. We'll talk about ratios later, but not right now. Ratio is another phrase for division. Here's our first problem. Translate and simplify the following. The quotient of 35 and 7. Well, that means the division symbol between the 35 and 7. So 35 divided by 7 is 5. How many times does 7 go into 35? 5 times. You didn't have to do this, but the related multiplication statement is 5 times 7 is 35. Kind of important to think about this because we'll use that later on. Again, you have to multiply these last two numbers to get the first number. Okay, 40 divided by 5. Well, we could write the second number is always written before the division. So 5 into 40. How many times does 5 go into 40? Yeah, 5 times 8 is 40. So you put the 40 below, and then you subtract, you put a line. 40 minus 40 is 0. So there's no remainder here. Our answer is just 8. Here's our next problem, 2b. 3 into 29. 29 divided by 3. So we want to get as close to 29 without going over. Well, 3 doesn't go into 2. So 3 into 29, let's see, that's 9 times. What is 3 times 9? 27. So you write the 27 underneath this 29. And then draw a line and subtract. And then 9 minus 7 is 2. That's our remainder. We're not talking about fractions right now, so we're simply going to write 9 R2s for 9 remainder 2. Okay. Division by 0 is not possible. If the divisor is 0, the correct answer is undefined. So here's our problem, 12 divided by 0, if possible. Well, we already said it's not possible. Let's try to do it anyways, because sometimes we want to try to understand why is it not possible. So 0 into 12. Well, it doesn't matter what number you put up here. 0 times whatever number you put here is going to be 0. Okay. Now, a lot of times when we say 12 divided by 0, some people think the answer is 0. It's not 0. You have to write undefined. Let's say you put 0 here for an answer. Well, 0 times 0 is 0, and then if you subtract 0, you get 12. We haven't made any progress. So we must write undefined. Also, remember we were talking about the related multiplication sentence. We talked about 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4, right? Multiply 3 times 4, you get 12. If you put an answer of 0 for 12 divided by 0, if you multiply these two numbers, do you get the first number? No way, right? So you cannot put 0. You have to write undefined. Okay, so this problem was if 0 is the divisor. Now let's talk about division where 0 is the dividend and not the divisor. In that case, the answer is 0. So 0 divided by 12. Remember, the second number is always written first. So 12 and a 0. 12 is the divisor. 0 is a dividend. And now we're saying the answer is 0. So if you put a 0 above, 12 times 0 is 0. And there's no remainder. So the answer is 0. Okay, so here we have two pretty close problems. If the 0 comes after the division symbol, it's undefined. If it comes before the division symbol, the answer is 0. If you answer 0 here, you're going to get marked wrong on the test. So you must write undefined. So again, 0 after the division symbol is undefined. 0 before is 0. It takes a little bit of time to memorize that, but it's a good idea to memorize these two problems and know when to write undefined and when to write 0. Okay, next slide. Oh, once again, I wrote a little note here. Remember, 12 divided by 3 is 4. 0 divided by 12 is 0. And if you multiply the last two, do you get the first one? Yes, 12 times 0 is 0. So that's why this one's okay to write 0. Now, what if they're both 0? Well, the answer that we're going to write is indeterminate. Not undefined, but indeterminate. Meaning we can't determine it. That's really what it means. It is not, we cannot determine the answer. And this really has some meanings later on when it comes to calculus. Not that we're going to worry about that right now, but let's kind of think about this for a little bit. They're both 0. What number can you put above the division that would give you a 0 without a remainder? You can put any number, actually. Let's put 5. 0 times 5 is 0, and there's no remainder. So any number will actually work. But what we're going to write is indeterminate. So when they're both 0, the answer is indeterminate. Okay, let's do a division problem. 256 divided by 7. Again, the second number is always written first. So now we're going to try to divide 7 into 2. Does 7 go into 2? No. So our first number is going to go above the 5 in the quotient because we're not dividing 7 into 2. We're going to divide 7 into 25. How close can we get to 25 without going over? Let's see, 7 times 4 is 28. That's too much. We want to get as close as we can without going over, so that would be 3. So we wrote a note. 7 doesn't divide into 2. Does 7 divide into 25? Yes. 3 times. Write it directly above the 5. So the 3 is going to go directly above the 5. Now multiply that and write it below the dividend. So 7 times 3 is 21, so we're going to write it below this 25. Then we're going to draw a line and subtract. So draw a line under the 21, subtract, then bring down the next number. So we subtract, 5 minus 1 is 4, and now bring down the next number, which is 6. Then we do it again. Continue the process. How many times does 7 divide into 46? We want to get as close to it without going over. It's going to go 6 times, because 7 times 7 would be 49. That would be too much. So the closest we could get to it is 6. So we're going to put a 6 after the 3. Multiply the 7 times 6. So multiply and write it below the new dividend. This is our new dividend. 7 times 6 is 42. Draw a line and subtract, and then we would bring down the next number if there was one. So draw a line and subtract, and there's no number to bring down, so that's our remainder. 36, remainder 4. Okay, let's do another problem. 3125 divided by 15. That's a good one, right? Divide 31 by 15. So 15 doesn't go into 3. 15 goes into 31. We want to write it above this 1 because we're dividing it into 31. If 15 went into 3, we would write it directly above this 3. The place value where you put this first number is very important. We don't want to put it above the 2 or the 5. It has to go directly above the 1. So how many times does 15 go into 31? It goes twice. Now, what you might want to do, multiply it and write it below the dividend, 30. Now we're going to draw a line and subtract, and then bring down the next number. So 30 sub 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring down the 2. Now 15 into 12. Does 15 go into 12? It doesn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a 0 above in the quotient, and then bring down the next number. So a 0 up there above the 2, and then we could bring down the next number. Sometimes people forget that part of putting a 0 there. Bring down a 5. Now we're dividing 15 into 125. Sometimes it gets hard when this number is big and we're dividing by 15. You might want to write down some products. Here's 15 times 7. Sometimes some people will just write down a whole bunch of them until they get the hang of it. Here's 15 times 7, 15 times 8, 15 times 9. How many times does 15 go into 125? Let's see, here's 15 times 7 is 105. 15 times 8 is 120. 15 times 9 is 135. That's too big, so it's got to be 8. So we'll put an 8 there, and then that gives us 120. Now we're going to draw a line and subtract. And that's our remainder. So notice that we wrote down a few of these products on this side. Sometimes it's a good idea just to write down a whole bunch of them in the beginning. That way you could see without thinking too much what number are you going to write here in the quotient. Okay, again, this 0, we put a 0 there because we subtracted and brought down a number, and then our divisors still didn't go into that number. So after you bring down a number, if your divisor still doesn't divide evenly into it, you have to put a 0 there, and then you can bring down a second number. All right, let's do another problem. A person earns $34,500 a year after taxes. How much does this person take home each month? So there's 12 months a year. So we want to know how much this person makes per month. Well, that means we're going to divide this into 12 equal paychecks, 12 months. So therefore it's a division problem. The total salary is separated into 12 equal groups. Therefore it's a division problem. So we're going to divide that by 12. Now again, you might want to write down all your 12s. 2, 3, 4. I know it takes a while, but maybe on a test, get some scratch paper out, write down those products of 12 or whatever your divisor is. That way you're not thinking about all of them during the problem. It won't take that long. And actually, it's good practice. Okay, 12 doesn't go into 3. 12 into 34. How many times does 12 go into 34? Well, 3 is too much, so it's got to be 2. And 12 times 2 is 24, so we'll write down the 24 below. Then subtract. That gives us 0, 1, a 10. Bring down the next number, 5. So now we're dividing 12 into 105. Go over to your little products here on the side and find the number closest to 105 without going over. Oh, 108, that's close, but just a little bit too much. So we're going to use 8. So 8 written above this 5. 12 times 8 is 96. And then subtract. That gives you 9. You got to borrow from this 10. Put a 1 in front of that 5, so that's 15 minus 6 is 9. Now bring down the next number. 90. Let's see. What's as close to 90 without going over? That's a 7. So 12 times 7 is 84. Subtract. And then bring down the next number, which is a 0. 60. Oh, looks like it's a 5. So 5 goes up here. 12 times 5 is 60. So that's our answer. Fractions are also used to indicate division. We're not doing a section on fractions here, but we're going to introduce it a little bit because they have the same meaning as division. A number in the form of a over b, where a and b are whole numbers, and b is not 0. So we're saying that the bottom number is 0. And that's called a fraction. The top number is called the numerator, and the bottom number is called the denominator. So when we have this in fraction form, a over b, it's equivalent to a divided by b. So here's our first example, 40 over 5. So that's the same as 40 divided by 5. Well, when we write as division, which number goes first? The 5. 5 into 40. And that gives us 8. So this fraction of 40 over 5 is equal to 8. The bottom number goes into the top number. So the bottom number goes here in front of the division box, 5 into 40. Okay, let's do a couple more and then that'll be it for this lesson. 32 over 2. Notice that the directions say simplify. It could say divide, it could say simplify. Both directions are fine. It means the bottom number into the top number. So 32 divided by 2, you could go right to this format. The bottom number in front of the division box, 2 into 32. 2 goes into 3 one time. Subtract. Bring down a 1, so 1, and then bring down the 2. 2 into 12 is 6. So the answer to this problem is 16. Last problem. 15 divided by 15. So how many times does 15 go into 15? Yeah, just once. And there is no remainder. Anytime these two numbers are the same, the answer will always be 1. Okay, that's the end of this lesson on division. I'll see you here for the next one. Bye.